Hello and welcome back to the Premier Injuries channel once again. This is your deadline update. We've got Geo Boys, who's already said evening mini game weekers. Yeah, how's it going, everybody? Do remember you can send in your messages through the stream, but Ben is going to go through all the important injury information as such. But yeah, before we get into it all, Ben, how are you doing? Are you excited for this blank game week?
Exciting isn't the word I would use. I'll be hoping to navigate it successfully. I will be looking to deploy my free hit chip as soon as this live stream has finished. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do. We'll cover a lot of the key injury updates, talking points, my thoughts, and then I'm going to try and shoehorn a best 11 out there, keep my fingers crossed, and then enjoy the Leeds and Wolves game tonight.
Just for people, on the stream, it is quite funny because Ben and I, we always tell everybody to leave it to the last minute. And, people can't accuse us of hypocrites because we still haven't done our teams. So it's literally going down to the wire and that all-important deadline. And, of course, the reason why we're going live now is because it is today. The kickoff is at 8 p.m. So make sure to have your team sorted and everything. But, yeah, I guess... let's start off with maybe the biggest injury news of this week. Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's not playing this game week, so people don't really have to worry about having him in their teams. But is this going to be a long-term injury? Is this something that maybe we should take him out for during the international break?
The long and the short of it is we don't currently know. There is no time frame as yet. However, I'm led to believe that game week 31, he certainly is a significant or a serious doubt for that game, and maybe they're hoping to get Trent back for the Manchester City game, which I believe is the following weekend or the following game. So as it currently stands, we're looking at a minimum of one game, obviously excluding the FA Cup and out of those England internationals. Fingers crossed to see how it goes, but like I say, it's still very early days in terms of the evolution of this injury, and that timeline, could be extended.
And it's a big one as well because game week 31, they got a nice fixture there against Watford. But as I always say to people, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Do follow Ben's Twitter as well. But we're always here to kind of give impartial information in terms of the Premier League. There's no rumour, there's no misinformation here. We unpack it all and give you the most accurate kind of stuff. So yeah, let's go through the fixtures then. We're going to go through each one and kind of weigh up the possibilities there. Wolves versus Leeds. Now, Ben, is there any big news there? We know that Leeds have really suffered with injuries over the last few game weeks. Is this going to be one that maybe they can expect a stronger team against Wolves?
Well, certainly the Leeds treatment room is beginning to empty, which is great for Jess March and supporters. Long-term absences of Liam Cooper and Calvin Phillips. Both of those players have been seen on the training pitches. They're training fully with the first team squad. However, Jess Marsh has talked about how he was, he will manage the players, their return, and I suspect they'll follow a similar return to play schedule as Patrick Bamford did, so maybe included in the match day squad and possibly minutes from the bench. But the bulk of those training and load increases will come over that international period. So whether they get a small cameo tonight remains to be seen, but certainly from game week 31 onwards, there's a strong possibility that both players will be in contention. Elsewhere, Rodrigo scored last weekend. He came off with a thigh complaint, a little bit of tightness in the muscle. It looks like he's going to be okay. And generally, Junior Firpo, 3 to 5 weeks. That's an MCL, medial collateral ligament injury there. Not as bad as first thought. They're going to thinking in around 3 to 5 weeks. So maybe after the break for him.
Now, in terms of Leeds United as well, a few people in the comments are asking, there's been rumours going around on Twitter, and this is what I like to say. We are not going to field any misinformation. We're going to give you proper analysis. There's been discussions about Rafinha. Do you have any information about him? Some people said maybe he's out, that he's not travelled. What's the case?
But I mean, the case is that the rumours seem to be circulating that Rafinha has tested positive for COVID. and therefore will be absent from the matchday squad. Of course, we've heard these rumours before. I think it was way back in Gameweek 5 when there was a lot of suggestion that Raphinha wouldn't be a part of that travelling squad. He subsequently was. How, at this moment in time, the long and the short of it is, I simply don't know. It's not something that we will get confirmation from the club. The PR department, people that we speak to, they'll not give any information, certainly on a match day, once that press conference has passed. So unless you're an insider or somebody at the club and for definite, then, we're not going to be able to confirm that. So, I'm a Raphinha owner as it currently stands. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that he'll be involved. We always hear that the problem is that, it's particularly when there's big games, when managers are relying on players because of reduced fixture slates and what have you, then, these rumours always seem to rear their ugly head. The majority, turn out to be, just rumor, nothing more than else. And then occasionally, we do have the one that comes to fruition. So, I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope that Raphinha is past fit and is part of the squad that travels to Molineux.
I'm surprised you didn't do a patented Ben Dinnery Donald Trump impression there. A bit of fake news with Raphinha.
Do you know what the difficulty is? And the problem is, like I say, for 95% of these things that crop up, they are just exactly that, and you can dismiss them straight away. But the moment you come out, and like I say, I can never be, particularly, we've covered this new, the guidance with regards to COVID, and we've seen how cases are on the rise. And unlike general population and, government protocol these days, the Premier League are still governed by a different set of rules. Certainly for the month of March, players are still being tested twice a week. That's a lateral flow test, a move away from that PCR test. And because that's the case, whilst they're being tested, players do have to self-isolate. So if those tests are coming up positive, then they're taken out of the squad and they will be removed until they can submit back-to-back negative lateral flow tests.
There you go. So hopefully it's a negative in terms of Raphinha, and that it's a positive that he can play. Let's move it to Wolves, though. Is there any kind of updates on injury situations there, or is it going to be pretty much an unchanged team?
Nelson Semedo and Kijana Hoover, they're the two hamstrung injury absentees. Pedro Neto as well is also carrying a minor foot problem. We're hoping to see him back after the international break. Now, people have been asking about Hee-Chan Hwang. Of course, he was forced off early doors at Goodison Park. That was an impact injury. So while there was no specific mention from Bruno Lage, I'm told that wasn't significant. I do expect him to be named in the squad. Of course, he has been part of that South Korean for the upcoming World Cup qualifying games. However, the caveat, I would expect Daniel Podence to return to that Wolves attack, maybe alongside Raul Jimenez. So even if Hee-Chan is past fit, then maybe he won't be named in that starting 11.
Let's move it to the Saturday game, which is Aston Villa versus my boys Arsenal, 12:30 kickoff. In terms of that one, Arsenal, we'll start off with them because it's literally just one player, Takehiro Tomiyasu. The annoying thing in terms of me being an Arsenal fan is kind of, will he be back? Will he be back? And it seems to have gone on for quite a while. Is there a definitive return this weekend?
No. What would the issue we have here? He's been dogged by ongoing calf complaint. Played very little minutes now. What's tantamount to almost 3 months. I think we've had one start. Maybe it was a Carabao Cup against Liverpool, and then he had a couple of roles on the bench. So there's been nothing in there. So, for Mikel Antonio to take a chance and throw him in this weekend would be a massive risk. Now, the worry for me this weekend with Arsenal, they're coming on the third game within a 6-day period. And of course, it's the early kickoff. Now, a lot of people talking about the likes of Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, Lacazette. For me, Lacazette, we've seen him, rarely does he complete 90 minutes, so while Mikel Arteta has limited options, I do expect him to start. But again, minutes would be my concern with Lacazette. And generally, just with this fatigued Arsenal team, we've seen a lot of players exit during that January window. There's not a lot of rotation that he can implement. So therefore, I'm not expecting a big performance from Arsenal, if the truth be known. I mean, Emile Smith-Rowe, he's back in contention and pushing for a start. That could potentially, put a question mark over Gabriel Martinelli. Remains to be seen. But I just don't like Arsenal in this early kickoff. I think it'll be a bridge too far. And I expect Aston Villa to get all 3 points in this game. Sorry, Jason.
That's a big call there. I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, we always go into these without having any discussion, so that one's shocked me a little bit. But in terms of it, I totally agree with the kind of worries over Lacazette, because he pretty much comes off early each game. And so, people have talked about him as being potential captain this game week, but I like to see my captain see out the 90, especially, in those deeper minutes of the match where defences make mistakes and things like that. Let's move it to Aston Villa, though. And, you talk about Arsenal maybe having a bit of problems with fatigue, but the Villa team have a fair few injuries as well to some key players. Callum Chambers, Douglas Luiz, Courtney House, Lucas Digne, Marvelous Nakamba. Some of them are quite important players to the team. Can you clear up if any of them are going to play this weekend?
Well, I mean, I suppose the headliner, the talking point is Lucas Digne. And there was hope offered, the fact that he was called up by the French national team. That led people to believe that maybe the hamstring problem that forced him off last weekend wasn't as serious as first thought. That's in and around a 10 to maybe 14-day type of injury, the high end, sort of maybe grade 1 tear. Now, Steven Gerrard categorically rules him out of that early kickoff, which probably means Ashley Young starts at left back. And he's probably going to miss that first French qualifier, and he may be back for the second game. Hence, he's sort of reason he's called up. He still has a chance for that one. Elsewhere, Callum Chambers, he took a whack in the face. I think it was from a forearm, required stitches, but nothing too serious, thankfully. So he's been past fit and he's available. There was big question marks over Douglas Luiz. Now, that was a boot to the face, which also required stitches, but also Steven Gerrard confirmed after last weekend's game that he would need surgery. Now, again, so that called into question his availability, but he has been training with the group. It looks a nasty one. And as far as we're aware, he is available for selection, but whether he does start or not remains to be seen. Possibility for Emi Buendia to come in there if Douglas Luiz was to miss out.
And so with the situation there, let's move it to the next game. It's Sunday, 20th of March. We got Leicester versus Brentford. Somebody has asked, it's Ebesilio. Hope I've not crucified the name there. We've got a tendency for that. But he's actually asked you, Ben, why wasn't Ricardo Pereira in your Leicester predicted 11, Ben?
Which predicted 11 was that? Because if we're talking about the fantasy hub one, he is.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is Ricardo Pereira has been struggling with a little bit of illness. It seems to be going through that Leicester camp. So even though he was named in the squad on Thursday night away at Rennes, he wasn't 100%. And him and Adam Aluki were more of a token appearance and giving it all for the team. Now, yes, he should be available. And yes, I do have him in my predicted 11 this weekend. But like I say, the caveat is you can never be 100% with illness. We'll see how he trains today, tomorrow, hopefully no reaction, and then be a part of the squad this weekend.
Yeah. I read that as maybe your 888 bet article as well. Maybe wasn't. That's not what he's written there, but maybe that could be as well. I mean, do you fancy Leicester against Brentford?
The problem is with Leicester, they're consistently inconsistent. They're getting players back, defensively suspect. And the worry is when you've got somebody like Ivan Toney up front for the Bees, and then you have somebody like Christian Eriksen, who's a chief creator who can carve those openings for Toney, either from open play or dead ball, then you're playing on the Leicester weaknesses at the back. So I certainly can't see Leicester keeping a clean sheet. I see this one as a maybe an entertaining, high-scoring draw. I can see this as maybe a 2-2 game.
Yeah, I think this is the thing that Leicester frequently through the season have had near relegation level defensive data, and Brentford have not been fantastic in attack by any means at all. But it could be one of those situations, as you said there, Ben, that it could just be like two really bad defensive sides, two fairly all right attacks, and who doesn't love a high-scoring game in terms of FPL as well. But yeah, let's talk about then any kind of Leicester City injuries that people need to be aware of. A lot of people have their eyes on Barnes, maybe Madison as well. Is there any concerns about their big players?
I mean, there's lots going on at Leicester at the moment. I did mention the fact that there has been a bit of a bug or a virus going through the camp. So we've had a lot of absences, non-COVID related absence. That was a major contributing factor to Wesley Fofana. He started in red on Thursday night. That's his first of the season. Not ideal, given the fact that he's missed so much time, but that's on the back of obviously Johnny Evans, still sidelined, although he has been pictured on the training pitches, and also Carlos Soyuncu. He missed the game through illness. Now, he's well placed to return on Sunday. So that's good news for the Foxes. Also, Patson Daka, he's struggling with illness. And of course, with Jamie Vardy, who maybe be back around game week 31 or 32. It looks like Kelechi Iheanacho is probably going to start. Too soon for Timothy Castagna. Like I mentioned Ricardo Pereira and also Ademola Lookman. They're both struggling, but they should be okay. But whether they're fit enough to start remains to be seen. Brendan Rodgers does have other options. However, one of those that we expect to miss out may be Mark Albrighton. He was forced off in France with an apparent groin issue. And also Wilfred Ndidi went into a big 50-50 challenge and looked as if he's jarred his knee. Possibility that there may be some meniscal or possibly ligament damage in there, which could keep him out for at least a few weeks.
Yeah, he's the big miss for me in terms of that Leicester City team. He's so undervalued in terms of his brilliance. He's basically, how do you solve a problem like replacing N'Golo Kante? Oh, well, Wilfred Ndidi does that very, very well. Last season his stats were absolutely ridiculous, kind of 99th percentile in terms of the things that a good defensive mid does. And he will be a big miss, especially as you kind of said already, that Leicester have been so poor defensively this season. His absence just makes them even worse at the back. Let's switch attention to Brentford though. Nuclear Atoms has brought up another kind of worry and a rumour that Ivan Toney might be out. I mean, is there any truth to that one, Ben?
Not if Thomas Frank is to be believed. We're looking at pretty much the same squad as we've seen for the last three outings. Josh Da Silva will serve the third game of his 3-match ban. Otherwise, the Bees should be pretty much as you were, and all being well, I expect them to be unchanged for that third successive game. Of course, they're coming off the back of consecutive wins from Norwich and Burnley. We touched on it at the start of the show about how these rumours and how they seem to start around key players and key fixtures around important times. And of course, the likes of Ivan Toney, 5-2 on a reduced slate, is going to feature quite heavily and high up on people's shopping lists. So, I'm not surprised to hear that. There may be a doubt from somewhere, but as it stands, the official news is that Ivan Toney is fit and available for selection.
Just quickly before we delve more into the fixtures, Ali Jahangirov has asked, is Madison carrying an injury?
Yeah, Madison's had a bit of a back problem that's been hampering him in recent weeks, and certainly that's why his minutes have been managed. The quick turnaround between fixtures is particularly problematic, so we've seen him on the bench for those Europa Conference games, and then also maybe coming off in around that 70th or 75th minute mark, in the Premier League. But so that's the reasons why. Yes, it's not too serious. It's more of a nigging issue that just needs to be aware of course, with the games coming thick and fast.
Excellent. So I think we've covered all that at the Leicester-Brentford one. The final one of the weekend is the London derby. Spurs versus West Ham. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments here. Nuclear Atom says the story for Tony Rumour was ridiculously hilarious. Just to add the context of the situation, Nuclear Atoms has sent it. It says that a small rumour because somebody met Tony this week at a horse race event. The guy asked Tony, does he have any injury? And he said he was carrying a knock. I mean, it's kind of...
I mean, what I would say at this stage of the season, if you were to ask the majority of players, then, if they were 100% fit, then I could quite confidently say, 95% of those players will be carrying some kind of knock, niggle, ailment. It's, and it's just because of the very nature of the sport. It's contact, it's high demand, it's high energy. We're coming off the back of a heavily disrupted, not just one pre-season, but the last couple of years, players coming from the Euros. So look, it's understandable. It's not the little knocks and niggles that need to worry people. It's those time loss injuries. And like I say, Ivan Toney, the form that he's in, 5 goals in 2 games. And also he's wanting to be going out there. I can guarantee he will want to be going out there tomorrow and showing Gareth Southgate, what he's missing and why, and giving him a reason to question why he hasn't been picked in that 3 Lions squad.
Yeah, I think it's the interesting thing with all these rumours and everything. They're great stories, but a lot of them are just fiction. But again, I think one point that you said that is quite important. Most players, this is something that we discuss, with Raj Bra when we do our weekly kind of injury podcast, is that most players through the season are carrying some sort of injury. They do play it. So he probably does have a knock, but it's not going to stop him from playing. Isn't that right, Ben?
Yeah, look, like I say, it wouldn't come as any surprise, and it's not necessarily about that knock and that niggle. It's about, is he available? How many minutes can he play? And most of them players will just roll their sleeves up and get on with it. And address. You've got a 2-week international break coming up. That's a time to refresh, refocus, take a couple of days away from the training pitches, and then get ready for that season running.
And the other thing as well is Tony gets a lot of his goals from penalties, so he doesn't need to run around too much. Let's move it though to the Spurs West Ham one. Great comments as always, and that distracted me, that one from Nuclear Atoms. Starting with Tottenham, any important injury information there? Because a lot of people are going to be captaining the likes of Son and Kane.
Yeah, fingers crossed again. I own both, so we need them to fit it and raring to go. 3 major talking points really from the Tottenham camp. Ryan Sessegnon, he's going to be out for at least the next month. He will have further imaging to determine when he can potentially return to training with the first team. So that basically locks in Sergio Reguilon on that left-hand side. Who else? We may just went after Jaffa Tanganga. Yeah, he's out for the campaign. We know that he's been managing an ongoing knee problem. Now, the Tottenham Medical Department have been trying to treat that issue conservatively. He hasn't responded as hoped. He hasn't been able to play until January. So that decision was taken with the club doctor to go under the knife. So Antonio Conte says, look, that's with a view of getting him ready for next pre-season. And the other injury, I have not got a clue off the top of my head.
Is it Ollie Skip?
Yes, it's Oliver Skip. You're right. Jason, you're absolutely 100% right. Yeah. And Oliver Skip, he is progressing. The issue that we've had here is an ongoing groin problem, pain presenting. They couldn't really get to the bottom of this. It's been almost 2 months now for Oliver Skip. However, in the last couple of days, we have seen a little bit of improvement. And Antonio said, well, if he continues that upward trajectory in terms of that progression and that diminishing pain levels, then possibly he could return in game week 31 against Newcastle.
In terms of the discussion point about Session's injury, meaning that Reguilon is basically now done, does that mean that you'd rather go for Reguilon over Doherty, just in case there is that rotation risk? You know, you're somebody that plays FPL, a bit different to maybe some, but you go quite risk adverse, going with the data, you know, the injuries and all that kind of stuff there. Would you make that decision to go for Reguilon just because of the situation at the club?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that Antonio Conte doesn't exactly hold Emerson Royale in very high esteem. There is a lot of suggestion that he could be leaving the club in the summer. He seems to have fell down the pecking order. And certainly Matt Doherty has been brilliant in his performances, more akin to the Matt Doherty that we've seen in his pomp at Wolves, as opposed to, you know, the player that looked just a shadow of his former self under Nuno at Tottenham. However, you know, there's always a possibility there that Antonio could rotate and change things around just to freshen things up, just to keep players on their toes. And therefore, maybe I am more inclined just to lean towards that Spaniard. But I expect both Matt Doherty and Reguilon to start this weekend. But we also seen last time out, you know, that Matt Doherty, you know, was afforded some time, didn't complete the 90 minutes and brought Emerson Royale on. So that would be my concern there, but I do like Matt Doherty.
Yeah, I mean, he's my pick in terms of my free hit, which we'll discuss after the stream. Well, hopefully we get it done in time. In terms of it, we're going back to Leicester really quickly. Nuclear Atoms has asked, how close is James Justin and Fofana being back in the starting 11?
I mean, Wesley Fofana, like you say, grabbed a goal in his first start on Thursday night. Ideally, you know, Brendan Rodgers wouldn't have wanted to throw him back in there. So in terms of being able to certainly for this weekend, it's a very quick turnaround. I expect Wesley Fofana will wake up this morning. He'll have a few bumps and bruises, a few aches, and he'll be a little bit sore. Use this international break to build up his load, to train more. And then there's no sort of reason as to why he can't be pushing for a start then. But of course, you know, we've seen the return now of Johnny Evans. Soyuncu is also in a better place in terms of his fitness. So it may come down to Brendan Rodgers and his selection and picking his team in and around those fixtures. James Justin, he's ready. He's been managed by Brendan Rodgers. He obviously had that minor hamstring niggle, but for all intents and purposes, he's ready and he can go. And there's no, you know, there's nothing that really should be holding him back. His absence is purely based on a tactical decision.
Yeah, and so if I haven't been impressed with Pereira recently, and so maybe he might start ahead of him. You know, that could be an interesting one. And we've seen the kind of high ceiling that James Justin has. Moving it to West Ham then, and I think there's a lot of questions, worries over their players because they had that midweek fantastic victory over Sevilla to get through to the Europa League latter stages. But in terms of that, it's going to be costly to a squad that has had a fair few knocks and concerns over the last few weeks.
Yeah, David Moyes, always very coy in his press conferences, doesn't like to give too much away. What we do know is, you know, I mean, the headline, Jared Bowen is out of the game, that's for sure. We heard from him early doors on Friday morning, basically before any of the players had arrived to be assessed after that win over Sevilla. So, you know, the fact that the team news was, you know, essentially just a waste of time. We didn't really have anything. So players will be assessed over the next 24 hours. My concern, West Ham only made one change for that game against Seville. That was the goalkeeper. So all 10 outfield players started. Now, Aaron Cresswell and Mikel Antonio were the two big injury doubts heading into that game. Neither player was able to do a full proper training session ahead of that match, and yet so it was a little bit of a surprise that they were included. Now it depends on how they recover and hopefully that they don't suffer any kind of reaction. And there's all one or two players that David Moyes, you know, can bring in and rotate if necessary. So that would be me worry with this West Ham lineup this weekend. We could see Yarmolenko, you know, back in that starting 11. He scored 2 goals now from the bench, 2 big goals. He seems to be in the right frame of mind, you know, and what a great story that's been.
So because, you know, the West Ham manager is so quiet and everything, would you call him David Coyes?
Very good, Jason. B+.
Let's analyse a bit more with the West Ham situation, though. Because of the kind of concerns that you have there, does that make you a bit more confident in captaining the likes of Son and Harry Kane. I mean, the fact that their back line is not going to be 100% of their most valuable or best players. Son could do bits, Kulikevsky could do bits, and then obviously Kane in the middle might be fed some really high quality chances.
Look, yeah, I do. I fancy Tottenham this weekend. I just think it's going to be an accumulation of minutes and a little bit of fatigue with that West Ham side. Had it not been a big London derby, then maybe the expectation is that I would have seen maybe David Moyes chop and change his team a little bit more. But given the gravity of this game, and he might stick with a nucleus of that side that's played in the last two, and these have been hard fought games, so it'll be interesting. But like I say, I expect Tottenham to get the job done here.
Right, so we're going to work through the last of the questions. So we're winding up here. People, please do send in your questions very quickly because we do have to sort our own teams out. We're following our own advice. We still haven't done our transfers. So Ben and I will be frantically doing that to get to the deadline. Marius Samoila, he says, will the hamstrings of Antonio resist after playing 120 last night? Or could we see Yarmolenko up front?
It's a gamble, and it would be a calculated risk. And to coin a phrase from Raj, it's risk and reward. Like I say, if it wasn't Tottenham and it wasn't a big London derby, we could see Mikel Antonio benched, but he will really, really want to be a part of this. The concern, as always with Mikel Antonio, is those hamstrings, and potentially a serious injury at this stage of the season, grade 2 or above, could potentially end his campaign. It wouldn't, in and around maybe 6 to 8 weeks easily for a high grade, setback. So this is difficult, like you say, given the form of Yarmolenko, then maybe he deserves his chance to start, and maybe that's a route that Moyes could look to explore. It really depends on how those players are feeling and how they train during that final session on Saturday.
Controversial question here, Ben. Nuclear Atoms has asked, do you think Trent's injury is just an international break injury?
Unfortunately not. I doubt that. I mean, what I would say, just to clarify, national teams, football federations, football associations, once a player's been called up, they don't take their club's medical advice, their manager's, coach's word for a player's specific injury. All players are assessed independently, and if clubs aren't providing that player to be assessed, then they can face ramifications for that, which would involve a suspension. So while Liverpool have said that it's a hamstring problem and will keep him out for X number of weeks or games, it could be that Trent maybe still joins up with the England squad to be assessed and then to be withdrawn. So unfortunately, this looks to be the real deal. And as potentially I suspect, he may even miss out in Gameweek 31 as well.
We got some nice messages there. FPL Diamond says, smash the like button, lads. That we do really appreciate that. Do give us thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit the subscribe button as well. He's asked about Rafinha if he has COVID. We did address that at the top of the show, and you can wind it back to kind of look at that analysis there. Patrick Okafor has asked, Coutinho or Eriksen? I am on a free hit. I mean, Ben, do you have any kind of choice between the two?
I would say Eriksen is the more maverick pick. You've touched upon it before, Jason. The concern with everybody gravitating towards Brentford and Ivan Toney and Christian Eriksen, it's great. They're coming off the back of two wins. Those 2 wins have come against relatively poor sides, in Norwich and Burnley, who aren't in great form. So let's not just try to get caught up too much in the hype. For me, Philippe Coutinho is the safer bet. Like I say, we could maybe see a slightly jaded, a slightly fatigued Arsenal team. And I also expect Philippe Coutinho lives for the big performances against the big teams. Mikel Arteta was interested. He was linked, so Coutinho might want to go out there and that, incentivize his performance. He has been great. Hasn't reached those consistent levels, and we'd expect that given the amount of time that he's missed, during Barcelona, and then they had that COVID. So he's still finding his feet again. But for me, Coutinho gets the nod.
Ooh, very controversial, because you said that you think that Villa are going to get the 3 points. I'm going to conversely say that I would go with Eriksen, just because I think that the way that he can deliver the ball to Ivan Toney or some of the others, one of the only kind of real positives, consistent positives through the season is Brentford. They are in a money ball team, and they work on their kind of marginal gains. They do love their set pieces, and I think that Eriksen, the fact that he will be on quite a few of them. Leicester, the worst team at conceding set pieces this season. I think we could see a few goals from that. Maybe we should do like a head-to-head, Ben. A bet. You're going with Coutinho. I'm going with Eriksen. Next question is from Ustaf Channon. He says, what is the Hwang fitness situation?
Understand that he will be a part of tonight's matchday squad. It was an impact injury towards that posterior aspect of the thigh, the hamstring, not related to his back. Had previous issues where the back was going into spasm. However, I think we did touch upon it. When I looked at my predicted 11, I'm expecting Bruno Lage to recall Daniel Pedence and probably start him alongside Raul Jimenez, which means even if Hee-chan is fit, then maybe it's a place on the bench for the South Korean.
So Marius has said, kind of repeated your sentiments, Ben. He hopes for a Kane hat-trick. So let's move to, we got a question about Kufal. Any kind of updates? Is he going to start?
Kufal, absolutely. Dare say absolutely not. Look, initial timeline. So if you don't know, there was an ongoing problematic groin issue, was being managed conservatively, got to the point where, the pain threshold was too much, went under the knife. Now, typically what we'd expect is maybe in and around that 6-week period. Therefore, Kufal, it's probably going to be after the international break.
We're going to move to a question about Newcastle. It's not game week 30, but game week 33. I have him, Fraser, in my side. Should I keep him until that game week 33?
The difficulty that we have, and that's exacerbated by this 2-week international break. There's so much can happen between now and then. Injuries, illness, form. So I like Ryan Fraser. Yes, we've suffered back-to-back losses. Chelsea, probably a little bit unfortunate. Everton was maybe just a little bit of a bridge too far. We lacked that little bit of quality, that little bit of guile and cutting edge in the final third. But I think Ryan Fraser is probably one of those players, along with maybe the likes of Joe Linton and Joe Willock, that have really sort of stood up to the test and stood up to be counted under Eddie Howe. So I did actually tip Ryan Fraser for a big season when I was talking ahead of the 2021-22 campaign. It's took a little bit of time to get here, but you know what? If Newcastle can have the Ryan Fraser that was once touted as a £30 million move from Bournemouth to Arsenal, then, at his price point with an FPL, and Newcastle have still got more to offer, then, I think he is a bargain. And Newcastle aren't out the mire. And we will touch upon this with videos during the break, but those teams will still have something to play for, targeting those differentials, those players who can potentially, bring you some nice little returns.
Looking at a question from Ryan, he says, Marco versus Aït-Nouri. Are there any thoughts or worries about rotation, Ben?
Yes, I don't like Bruno Lage and rotation. Even when Wolves go out and do a decent job, he still seems to, to mess on with his team. So there's nobody locked in. And obviously, Ait-Nouri and Markel are one of those ones that are vying for a place on the left-hand side. We've seen Kilman in recent times swapped out for Willy Bowley. I actually went for Ait-Nouri tonight, but you know what, it's a toss of a coin. It really is. It's a 50-50 shout. If I was looking for somebody in that Wolves team, maybe Johnny on the opposite flank is worth a little bit of confidence, because we know Kijana, he's sidelined now, so he won't be getting a look in, and maybe he's worth having a look at.
I mean, in the Wolves defence, I always go with Cody. It's a bit boring, but he always starts and I don't want any kind of worries over that. We've had some nice comments, Ben, from people saying thanks for the deadline stream. Perfect timing, Nuclear Atoms has said. FPL Diamond has said 62 watching, but only 20 likes. Yeah, please do hit the like button. We love talking to you all, and we'll be doing, consistent streams from now till the end of the season, and we'll be here all next season as well. I think that's the last of the questions. The final one, I put it to everybody in the community listening today, Ben. But who's going to be your captain for Game Week 30?
I mean, Harry Kane. Harry Kane is the one, but me, Jason, he's
differential.
Effective. Yeah,
Dinnery.
So I might throw the armband on Son, but like I say, as soon as I come off this stream, I'm actually going to have a look at my team. I'm going to throw the free hit out there, and I will take a couple of gambles, a couple of punts, and who knows? Like I say, I may target certain fixtures. I might go heavy on Aston Villa. Apologies if I'm upsetting you there, Jason, which could mean, which throws maybe a Coutinho or a Ollie Watkins into the mix. Look, if anybody's listening and everyone, Harry Kane's your man. That's, for me, he's the standout captaincy choice for this week. Just given his underlying data, his recent form, the fixtures, stars are aligned. I know it's a London derby, West Ham a little bit fatigued, but for me, and everybody's gravitating towards him, I may look elsewhere.
So just everybody else has answered. They said 63% are going with Kane, 26% are going with Son, and 11% are going with someone else. So yeah, I hope that has helped everybody. Okay, we'll do one final question here. I hope you don't mind, Ben. Joy Deep Merkaji has asked Son or Kulu. I mean, I would go with Son every day. Especially this, if you're playing a free hit this week, you'll have loads of money in the bank because there's quite a few cheap assets. But would you go with Kulu because you're differential Dinnery?
I do like him, and I would consider the Spurs treble up with Kane, Son, and Kulu. It's big. I mean, it's a big call, but like I say, I fancy Spurs to get at least three this weekend. I really do. And I know David Moyes has done a fantastic job. West Ham have been brilliant, but I just think it might be a little bit of a game too far, given the fact that they had that extra time run out. The bulk of that starting 11 is going to be the same. Spurs have had that extra recovery time. So yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to the treble up, but if it was a straight up fight, Heung-min Son would get the nod.
Yeah. So that is the end of today's stream, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed that. Please do subscribe, do leave a like button and share to the community as well. We love chatting to you all, and we try and keep you up to date as much as possible with these. But the best place to keep up to date with us, as I said, subscribe to the channel, but also follow Ben's Twitter. You can engage with him there, ask him questions. You can also come to my Twitter, and also the Premier Injuries Twitter as well, Injury Expert. So in terms of that, I hope everybody has a fantastic game week, that you do very well with Game Week 30, and we will see you after the international break, but we'll have some good content in between then and the international break as well. But for now, cheerio and enjoy